"I would trade places with you to have something to eat," the beggar said to the woman in the wheelchair. Victoria Sterling felt her chest tighten as she tried to ignore the ragged boy watching her through the restaurant window. For 3 weeks straight, always at the same lunchtime, there he was in his patched-up clothes and faded brown beanie covering his messy hair. It was then that his words finally pierced the glass, separating her from the street. The boy pressed his face against the window and said something that made her shudder in her wheelchair. "I would trade places with you to have something to eat," the boy murmured, pointing to the untouched plate on the table. Victoria felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. For a moment, she forgot all the bitterness she had carried for 2 years since the accident that left her paralyzed. The boy couldn't have been more than 8, but his eyes carried a sadness she recognized well. "Arthur, call security," she said to the waiter, trying to keep her voice steady. "No need, Mrs. Victoria. He doesn't bother anyone, just stands there watching," replied Arthur, a 60-year-old man who had worked at the restaurant for decades. "I don't want to see a child begging in front of me," she retorted, stirring her salad without any appetite. But the boy didn't move away. He stayed there, watching her every move with a curiosity that unsettled her. Victoria tried to eat, but she felt the weight of that childish gaze. When she looked up again, she found the boy drawing something on the foggy glass with his finger. It was a heart. She swallowed hard and waved at Arthur. "Bring that kid inside." "Are you sure, Mrs. Victoria?" "Bring him now before I change my mind." Arthur went out and came back a few minutes later with the boy, who walked slowly, clearly intimidated by the upscale environment. His clothes were more worn than Victoria had noticed from afar, and she saw he limped slightly on his left leg. "What's your name?" she asked, pointing to the empty chair in front of her. "Leo, ma'am." "Leo Dawson." "How old are you, Leo?" "8, ma'am, but sometimes I feel older." The answer surprised her with its maturity. Victoria watched as he hesitated before sitting down, wiping his dirty hands on his shirt before touching the chair. "Why do you keep watching me every day?" Leo lowered his head, fiddling with the tips of his beanie. "You always look sad, even when you're eating tasty things. I keep wondering why someone who has everything can be like that." Victoria felt her heart race. No one had noticed her sadness in months, not even her sister Catherine, who visited her religiously every Sunday with empty words of encouragement. "And you? Why are you on the streets?" "My grandma is at the hospital. I don't have anyone else." "Where are your parents?" Leo shrugged. "I never knew my dad. My mum, she left when I was 5. She said she couldn't take care of a child and work at the same time." Victoria clenched her fists. She knew the feeling of abandonment well, even if for different reasons. Since the accident, many friends had disappeared from her life, unable to handle her new condition. "Arthur, bring a plate for the boy," she ordered. "No need, ma'am. I just wanted to look." "Don't be stubborn. Eat." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now continuing. Arthur brought a generous plate of roast beef with mashed potatoes and gravy, and Victoria watched as Leo ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were the last meal of his life. Maybe it was. "Where do you sleep?" she asked. "In different places. Sometimes in the square, sometimes under the pharmacy awning. Depends on if it's raining." "And your grandma? What hospital is she in?" Leo stopped eating and his expression darkened. "Mercy General Hospital. She has a heart condition. The doctors say she needs an expensive operation, but we don't have the money." Victoria knew that hospital well. It was where she had spent months after the accident, where she learned to live with a wheelchair and people's pitying looks. But it was also a public hospital, with long waiting lists for surgeries. "How long has she been there?" 3 weeks, ever since you started coming here for lunch. The coincidence haunted her. 3 weeks ago, Victoria had started coming to that restaurant as a way to escape the loneliness of her empty mansion. 3 weeks ago, Leo had lost the only person left in the world to him. "Do you visit her?" "Every day. I walk there in the morning and come back in the afternoon. It's far, but she's happy when she sees me." Victoria mentally calculated the distance. Mercy General Hospital was over 9 miles from there. For an 8-year-old walking, it would be a journey of at least 3 hours each way. How do you get money to eat? Leo lowered his head again, ashamed. Sometimes I ask for coins at the traffic light. Sometimes I pick up aluminum cans. Other times I just don't eat. Victoria's heart tightened. She, who complained about everything, who constantly lamented her condition, was now faced with a child who faced far greater hardships, with a dignity she had lost long ago. Leo, tell me the truth. Why did you say you'd trade places with me? The boy looked up, and Victoria saw a painful sincerity in his eyes. Because you have a house, food, people who care about you. I only have my grandma, and she might leave at any moment. Victoria swallowed the tears that threatened to well up. Leo didn't even know she lived alone in the mansion, that she had no close family besides Catherine, that her friends had drifted away after the accident. And what would you do if you could have all that? I'd take care of my grandma, I'd buy her medicine, pay for the operation, and maybe one day she could come home with me. At that moment, Victoria made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Leo, do you want to come with me to the hospital? The boy's eyes lit up in a way she hadn't seen in anyone in years. You'd do that for me? Let's go see your grandma, right now. Victoria called her personal driver, Edward, who was used to her sudden departures since the accident. When he saw Leo getting into the car next to his boss, he couldn't hide his surprise, but he didn't ask questions. During the drive to the hospital, Leo told her more about his life. His grandmother, Mrs. Martha, had been a housekeeper her entire life. She raised Leo alone after her daughter abandoned the boy. They worked together collecting recyclable materials to supplement her pension, which barely covered the rent for the small room where they lived. She always said, I was the most precious treasure God had given her, Leo said, wiping a tear that rolled down his face. I just wanted her to get better so I could take care of her like she took care of me. Victoria saw herself reflected in those words. When she was Leo's age, she too had promised to take care of her maternal grandmother, the only person who had truly loved her unconditionally. But life saw to it that she was taken before Victoria could fulfill the promise. Arriving at Mercy General Hospital, Victoria was faced with the same poor conditions she had known years ago. The overcrowded hallways, the smell of disinfectant mixed with suffering, the families camped out on plastic chairs waiting for news of their loved ones. Leo guided her through the hallways with the familiarity of someone who knew every corner of that place. They stopped in front of room 315, where through the window, Victoria could see a black woman with grey hair, looking about 70 years old, connected to several machines. Grandma, I brought you a visitor, Leo said, entering the room. Mrs. Martha slowly opened her eyes and smiled when she saw her grandson. But when she noticed Victoria in the wheelchair, her expression filled with curiosity and a bit of apprehension. Leo, who is this lady? It's Mrs. Victoria, Grandma. She gave me food today and wanted to come meet you. Martha tried to sit up in bed to greet her properly, but she was too weak. Don't trouble yourself, Mrs. Martha. I came here on my own, Victoria said, moving the chair closer to the bed. Thank you so much for being kind to my grandson, ma'am. He's a good boy, just going through a tough time. Victoria watched the interaction between grandmother and grandson. There was genuine love there, a connection she hadn't experienced in years. Leo held his grandmother's hand carefully, as if she were made of glass. Did the doctor come by today, Grandma? He did, my dear. He said I need to have the surgery soon, otherwise it'll get harder. Leo swallowed hard, trying not to show the fear he felt. Victoria noticed the boy's effort to be strong in front of his grandmother. Mrs. Martha, if you don't mind me asking, what exactly is the problem? A problem with my heart valves, ma'am. I need to get 2 new valves, but the public hospital waiting list takes months and the doctor said I can't wait that long. And how much does the private surgery cost? Martha hesitated, clearly embarrassed. $30,000, ma'am, but that's more money than I've seen in my whole life. Victoria did the math in her head. $30,000 was what she spent in 2 months just on maintaining her house. It was less than her designer handbag, which was in the car at that moment. Grandma, don't be sad. I'll get the money, Leo said, squeezing his grandmother's hand. How, my dear? There's no way you can get all that. I will, I swear. I'll work more. I'll ask for more spare change. You're going to get better, I promise. Victoria felt her heart break at the scene. An 8-year-old boy promising to get $30,000 by collecting aluminum cans. Leo's innocence and determination reminded her of herself as a child when she believed she could solve all the world's problems just with goodwill. Leo, could you give me a few minutes alone with your grandmother? The boy hesitated, but Martha encouraged him to go get some juice from the hospital cafeteria. When they were alone, Victoria moved closer to the bed. Mrs. Martha, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, ma'am. Do you have any other family besides Leo? Martha shook her head sadly. Just him. My daughter disappeared 3 years ago and never got in touch again. Leo is all I have left in the world. And if something happens to you... He'll be alone, Martha finished, unable to hold back her tears. That's what hurts the most, Mom. It's not dying, it's leaving that boy helpless. He doesn't deserve that. Victoria gently touched the elderly woman's hand. Mrs. Martha, I want to pay for your surgery. Martha's eyes widened, unable to believe what she had heard. Ma'am, I can't accept that. It's too much money. You can and you will. I'll talk to the doctors today to schedule the surgery. But why? You don't even know me. Victoria thought about the answer for a few seconds. Because your grandson taught me something today that I had long forgotten. He showed me that even having so little, he still dreams of taking care of the people he loves. I have so much and I don't do that for anyone. Martha began to cry, but these were tears of gratitude and relief. How can I thank you for something like this? By getting better and continuing to take care of Leo. He needs you. When Leo came back with the juice, he found the two women chatting like old friends. Victoria had discovered that Martha was a wise woman who had raised Leo with solid values, even through so many hardships. Leo, I have some news for you, said Victoria, as the boy sat down beside the bed. Your grandmother is going to have the surgery next week. What do you mean? But the waiting list is so long. It won't be through the public hospital. I'm going to pay for her to have it done privately. Leo was silent for a few seconds, trying to process the information. You're going to pay $30,000 for my grandma? Yes, I am. The boy ran out of the room. Victoria and Martha got worried, thinking he was scared by the situation. But Leo came back a few minutes later with his eyes red from crying. I don't know how to thank you, Mrs. Victoria. You're an angel. I'm no angel, Leo. I'm just someone who forgot how important it is to help others. That afternoon, Victoria took care of all the details. She talked to the doctors, arranged the payments, and scheduled the surgery for the following Monday. Leo didn't leave her side, still in shock from the turn their lives had taken. When they said goodbye at the hospital, Leo did something that surprised Victoria. He took a small stone out of his pocket, smooth and shiny. I found this on the street last week. I thought it was pretty and kept it. I want you to have it. Victoria took the small stone and felt how warm it still was from the boy's pocket. Why do you want to give me this? Because it's the most precious thing I have and you deserve it. During the drive back home, Victoria was silent, fiddling with the stone in her hands. Edward, her driver, watched her through the rearview mirror, surprised at his boss's change in behavior. Mrs. Victoria, if you don't mind me saying, it's been a while since I've seen you so cheerful. It's true, Edward. I think I found something I'd lost. What was it, if I may ask? A purpose. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Leo and Martha. For the first time in 2 years, she woke up wanting to get out of bed, eager to know how they were preparing for the surgery. On Friday, she decided to visit them again. Arriving at the hospital, she found Leo sleeping in an uncomfortable chair beside his grandmother's bed. Martha was awake and smiled when she saw her. Leo hasn't wanted to leave here since Monday. He says he needs to take care of me before the operation. Victoria watched the sleeping boy. He looked even smaller, curled up in that chair, with his lopsided cap partially covering his face. His clothes were the same as 4 days ago. Mrs. Martha, Leo needs to take a shower and change clothes. He can't stay like this." "I know, ma'am, but he won't leave here even to get clean clothes from our room." Victoria made an impulsive decision. "I'm taking him to my house today. He needs to rest and eat properly. I don't know if he'll agree to leave me here alone. We'll convince him together." When Leo woke up, it took him a few minutes to understand where he was. Seeing Victoria, he smiled tiredly. "Mrs. Victoria, you came to see my grandma. I came to see both of you. Leo, you need to get out of here for a few hours. I can't leave my grandma alone." "You won't help anyone by getting sick from exhaustion," Martha intervened. "Go with Mrs. Victoria, take a shower, eat some good food. I'll be here when you come back. But what if something happens while I'm away?" "Leo, look at me," said Victoria, holding the boy's hands. "I promise that if anything happens, my driver will bring you right back here. But your grandmother needs you to be strong for after the surgery." After much persuasion, Leo agreed to accompany Victoria. During the drive to the mansion, he was amazed by the size of the house, the well-kept garden and the pool shimmering under the afternoon sun. "Do you live all alone in all this?" "I do. After my accident, a lot of things changed in my life." "What kind of accident?" Victoria hesitated. It had been a long time since she'd talked about it with anyone. "A car accident, 2 years ago. Because of it, I can't walk anymore." Leo processed the information in silence for a few minutes. "Were you driving?" "No, my husband was." "And where is he now?" Victoria felt the familiar pain tighten in her chest. "He didn't survive the accident, Leo." The boy stopped walking and looked at her with an expression of understanding beyond his years. "You lost your husband and still can't walk?" "That's right. Now I get why you used to look sad at the restaurant." Victoria was surprised by the boy's sensitivity. In just a few words, he had grasped what therapists had been trying to explain for months. Inside the house, Leo took his first hot shower in weeks. Victoria had asked her housekeeper, Mrs. Higgins, to set aside some clean clothes from her nephew, who was about the same age. When Leo came down for dinner, he looked like a different boy. "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Victoria. It's been a long time since I felt this clean." During dinner, Leo ate with the appetite of someone who didn't know when his next meal would be. Victoria watched his every move, impressed by his polite manners despite his circumstances. "Leo, your grandmother taught you good manners. She always said being poor wasn't an excuse to be rude, that I needed to be a boy she could be proud of. And she is proud. Anyone would be proud of you." After dinner, they sat in the living room. Leo was fascinated by the number of books on Victoria's shelves. "Have you read all of these?" "Most of them." "Why? Do you like to read?" "I do, but I'm not very good at it. My grandma tried to teach me, but she doesn't know much herself." "Have you ever been to school?" Leo shook his head sadly. "My grandma wanted to enroll me, but something always came up. Sometimes we didn't have money for supplies. Sometimes she got sick, and I had to work to buy medicine." Victoria felt a growing indignation inside her. How could a smart kid like Leo be deprived of an education just because of a lack of resources? "Leo, after your grandmother gets better, we'll sort out this school situation. You'd do that too?" "Of course I would. Kids need to study." That night, Leo slept in the mansion's guest room. Victoria stayed up late thinking about how her life had changed in just 1 week. For the first time since the accident, she felt like she had a reason to wake up the next day. On Saturday morning, she woke up to the sound of voices in the garden. Through the window, she saw Leo talking to Arthur, who was cleaning the car. The boy was asking questions about everything, curious and polite as always. "Good morning, Leo. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, I did, Mrs. Victoria. Thank you for letting me stay in the most beautiful house I've ever seen." "You can stay here whenever you want." During breakfast, Leo asked a question that surprised her. "Mrs. Victoria, do you have any children?" "No, Leo, my husband and I wanted to, but we never could." "And now that he's gone?" "Now it's just me." Leo was thoughtful for a few minutes. "You know, I always wanted to have a real mother, someone who cared about me the way my grandma does." Victoria felt her heart race. There was something in the way Leo spoke that awakened a maternal instinct in her, one she thought she had lost forever. Leo, do you consider your grandmother a mother? Yes, I do. She's everything to me. But sometimes I imagine what it would be like to have a big family, with lots of people who love me. That afternoon they went back to the hospital together. Mrs. Martha was moved to see Leo rested and well fed. Thank you so much, Mrs. Victoria. I don't know how to repay such kindness. You don't need to repay anything. Leo did more for me than you can imagine. What do you mean? Victoria looked at Leo, who was organizing Mrs. Martha's few personal items on the hospital nightstand. He reminded me of what's important in life. He made me feel useful again. On Sunday, the eve of the surgery, Victoria decided to stay at the hospital with Leo. They spent the whole day talking with Mrs. Martha, trying to keep her calm and confident for the procedure. Mrs. Martha, I have a confession to make, Victoria said that night when Leo had fallen asleep in the chair next to the bed. Go ahead, Mom. These past few days have been the best I've had in 2 years. Leo brought a light into my life that I thought had gone out forever. He has that gift. He's always been a special child. I'd like to propose something, but I don't want you to feel pressured. Mrs. Martha looked at her curiously. What would that be? After you recover, I'd like you both to come live with me. The house is too big for just one person, and Leo needs to study. Mrs. Martha was silent for so long that Victoria thought she had offended the elderly woman. Mom, that would be too much. It wouldn't be too much at all. It would be a blessing for me. But we can't afford to pay. I don't want payment. I want company. I want a family. Mrs. Martha started crying silently. You don't know what you're saying. I know perfectly well. Leo gave me back my will to live. You two would give me back my will to have a family. On Monday morning, the entire medical team was prepared for Mrs. Martha's surgery. Leo was nervous, pacing back and forth in the waiting room. What if something goes wrong, Mrs. Victoria? Nothing will go wrong. Your grandmother is strong and the doctors are the best. But what if... Leo, look at me, said Victoria, holding the boy's trembling hands. Your grandmother will be fine. And when she comes out of surgery, you two will have a new life. What do you mean? Last night, I talked to her about you both coming to live with me. Leo's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely serious. Do you want to be my son, Leo? The boy started crying and threw himself into Victoria's arms, who hugged him with all her might. In that moment, she knew she had found what she hadn't known she was looking for. A reason to live again. The surgery lasted 4 hours. They were the longest 4 hours of Leo and Victoria's lives. They waited together, talking about the future, making plans, dreaming about the new life that awaited them. When the doctor finally appeared in the waiting room, Leo jumped to his feet. Doctor, how's my grandma? The surgery was a complete success. Your grandmother is recovering very well. Leo shouted with joy and hugged Victoria again. She was also crying, but from happiness and relief. When can we see her? Asked Victoria. She's still in recovery, but in a few hours you can make a quick visit. When they were finally able to see Mrs. Martha, she was awake and smiled when she saw them. How do you feel, Grandma? I feel brand new, my dear, like I've been given a second chance at life. And you have, said Victoria. We all have. In the weeks that followed, while Mrs. Martha recovered in the hospital, Leo temporarily moved into Victoria's mansion. The change was surprising for both of them. The house, which once echoed with loneliness, now vibrated with the energy of a child. Leo explored every corner of the property with the natural curiosity of his age. Victoria, for her part, rediscovered the joy of caring for someone, of worrying about another person's well-being. Mrs. Victoria, can I ask you something? Said Leo one morning, as they were having coffee together. Of course, Leo. You can ask me anything. Why did you want to send me away on that first day? I wasn't bothering anyone. Victoria sighed, knowing this moment would come. Because I was angry at the world, Leo. I thought everyone was trying to take advantage of me. But I was just looking. I know, but I had become a bitter person. The accident didn't just take my legs. It took my ability to trust people. And now Now you've taught me that there are still good people in the world. People like you and your grandmother." Leo was thoughtful for a few minutes. "You know, on that first day I didn't want to switch places with you because of the food. No. I wanted to switch because you seemed sadder than me, and I thought if I were in your shoes, I could make you happy." Victoria was moved by his response. Even while going hungry on the streets, Leo was worried about the sadness of a stranger. "And you did make me happy, you know." "I did." "Yes, you did. You gave me the most precious thing there is, a family." During that time, Victoria made sure Leo had everything he needed: new clothes, toys, books. But what impressed her most was how the boy received everything with gratitude, never asking for anything beyond what was necessary. She also started teaching him to read better and to do basic math, preparing him to start school as soon as Martha fully recovered. "Leo, you are a very intelligent child. You're going to do very well in school." "Do you really think so?" "I'm sure of it. And when you grow up, you can choose any profession you want. I want to be a doctor, to help people like the doctor helped my grandma." "Then you'll be a doctor. I'll make sure you have the best education possible." 3 weeks after the surgery, Martha was discharged from the hospital. Her recovery had been exceptional, surprising even the doctors. When she arrived at Victoria's mansion, she was amazed by the changes in Leo. "My God, how you've grown," she said, hugging her grandson. "That's because I'm eating well, Grandma. And Mrs. Victoria is teaching me to read difficult books." Martha looked around the mansion, still in disbelief at their new reality. "Mrs. Victoria, I don't know how to thank you for all this. Mrs. Martha, you're the ones who saved me. I was lost in my own sadness." That night, during dinner, Victoria made an official announcement. "I'd like you to consider me part of the family from now on, and I want to consider you my family too." Leo jumped out of his chair and ran to hug her. "Does that mean you're my mum now, if you want me to be?" "I do." Martha was also moved by the scene. "Mrs. Victoria, you're giving us so much more than a home. You're giving us hope." In the months that followed, the lives of the three changed completely. Leo was enrolled in one of the best private schools in the city and quickly stood out in his studies. Martha, recovered from the surgery, became a precious companion for Victoria, with her life stories and folk wisdom. But not everything was smooth sailing. Victoria's sister, Catherine Sterling, didn't take the new family situation well. "Victoria, have you lost your mind? You brought 2 strangers to live in your house?" she said during one of her Sunday visits. "They're not strangers. They're my family." "Family? How long have you known them?" 3 months. "Catherine, they've done more good for me in 3 months than you have in 2 years. That's ingratitude. I've always been here for you. You've always been here out of obligation. Leo and Mrs. Martha are here out of love." The argument ended with Catherine storming out of the house, vowing that this wasn't over. Victoria was shaken by her sister's reaction, but Leo noticed her sadness. "Mrs. Victoria, did I do something wrong?" "No, Leo. You didn't do anything wrong. Some people have a hard time accepting change." "Does your sister not like me and Grandma?" "She doesn't know you yet. When she gets to know you better, she'll understand why you're so special." But Catherine didn't give up. A few weeks later, she came back with a lawyer. "Victoria, I'm very worried about your mental state. You're making decisions without thinking straight." "What decisions?" "Adopting 2 people you barely know. Spending your money on them. That's not normal." The lawyer, a middle-aged man with a stern demeanor, stepped forward. "Mrs. Victoria, your sister is considering filing for guardianship. She believes you are not mentally fit to manage your assets." Victoria was shocked. Guardianship meant she would lose control over her own life and money. "Catherine, how can you do this to me?" "It's for your own good, Victoria. These people are taking advantage of you." Leo, who was in the garden when the lawyer arrived, overheard the conversation and got scared. He ran to where Mrs. Martha was preparing lunch. "Grandma, they want to take Mrs. Victoria away from us." "What do you mean, my dear?" "Her sister brought a man in a suit, and they're saying Mrs. Victoria can't take care of her money." Mrs. Martha stopped what she was doing and went to the living room, where she found Victoria, pale, being interrogated by the lawyer. "Excuse me," said Mrs. Martha, entering the room. "May I ask what's going on?" "And who are you?" asked Catherine contemptuously. "I'm Martha Dawson, Mrs. Victoria's adoptive mother." "Adoptive mother? That's ridiculous." Victoria composed herself and looked firmly at her sister. "Catherine, I've never been more clear-headed in my life. Leo and Mrs. Martha saved me from depression and gave me a reason to live." "That's emotional manipulation," insisted the lawyer. "Emotional manipulation?" repeated Mrs. Martha, with the dignity of someone who had raised a family on her own. "Sir, I took care of Mrs. Victoria when she was crying alone every night." My grandson brought back her smile. "If that's manipulation, then I prefer our manipulation to the indifference of her family." Leo walked into the room at that moment, shy but determined. "Mrs. Victoria, if you want us to leave so we don't cause trouble—" "You're not going anywhere," said Victoria categorically. "This is your home too." "Victoria, be reasonable," insisted Catherine. "I am reasonable. You're the ones who aren't." "Catherine, you only showed up here on Sundays for half an hour, always in a hurry to leave. Leo and Mrs. Martha live with me, take care of me, and keep me company every day." The lawyer tried another approach. "Mrs. Victoria, think carefully. You've known these people for only a few months. How can you be sure of their intentions?" Victoria looked at Leo and Mrs. Martha, then turned to the lawyer. "Sir, let me tell you a story. 4 months ago, I was a bitter woman living isolated in this house, with no will to live. Leo was an 8-year-old boy starving on the streets, but he still worried about my sadness. He said he would trade places with me to have something to eat, but really, he wanted to trade places to make me happy. That's not taking advantage. It's unconditional love." Catherine started to look visibly uncomfortable with her sister's account. "Leo never asked me for anything except food to satisfy his hunger. When I offered him money, he refused. When I paid for his grandmother's surgery, he gave me a little stone from the street as thanks, saying it was the most precious thing he had. Do you call that taking advantage?" The lawyer realized the case was lost. It was obvious to anyone that Victoria was of sound mind and had found a real family. "Catherine, I think we should reconsider this matter," he murmured. "No," said Catherine, beginning to realize her own mistake. "Victoria, I just wanted to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "Happiness." Catherine couldn't answer. She looked at Leo, who was watching her with wide, scared eyes, then at Martha, who maintained a quiet dignity. "I think I made a mistake," she finally admitted. "You sure did," said Victoria, "but you can still fix it." Catherine approached Leo, who instinctively hid behind Martha. "Leo, I'm sorry. I was wrong." The boy looked at Victoria, as if asking for permission to accept the apology. "You can talk to her, Leo. She's my sister, and now she's your aunt too. Aunt Catherine, don't you really like us?" Catherine knelt down to be at the boy's level. "It's not that I don't like you. It's that I was afraid of losing my sister." "But you won't lose her. Now we're one big family." Leo's simple words touched Catherine's heart in a way she didn't expect. For the first time, she saw the sincerity and purity that had won Victoria over. "Leo, do you forgive me?" The boy looked again at Victoria, and then at Martha, who nodded encouragingly. "I forgive you, but promise you won't try to split us up again?" "I promise." The lawyer left awkwardly, and Catherine stayed for lunch. It was the first time in years she had stayed at her sister's house for more than 2 hours. During the meal, she talked with Martha and discovered a wise and interesting woman. Leo, always curious, asked 1,000 questions about the aunt he had just met. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. At the end of the afternoon, as Catherine was getting ready to leave, she pulled Victoria aside. "Sis, I owe you an apology too." "It's all forgiven, Catherine." "No, I need to say this. After your accident, I came here out of obligation. I didn't know how to handle your sadness, so I pretended everything was fine and left as quickly as I could. I knew that. Leo is 8 years old and managed to do what I, your 45-year-old sister, couldn't. He gave you back your joy in living." Victoria hugged her sister lovingly. "It's never too late to start over, Catherine. Now you're part of this family too." From that day on, the family dynamic changed completely. Catherine began visiting the house several times a week, developing a special bond with Leo and deeply respecting Martha. Leo quickly adapted to school and soon became one of the top students in his class. His teachers were impressed with his dedication and maturity. At home, he split his time between studying and precious moments with his two grandmothers, as he had started calling Victoria and Martha. "Mrs. Victoria, can I ask you something?" he said one afternoon while they were doing homework together. "Always, Leo. Do you still miss walking?" The question caught Victoria off guard. It had been months since anyone had brought that up. "Sometimes I do, yes. Why?" "Because I want you to know that it doesn't matter to me. You're perfect, just the way you are." Victoria had to hold back tears in front of the boy. "Thank you, Leo. You don't know how important those words are to me. And I want you to know that when I grow up, I'm going to invent a machine to make you walk again." "Leo, that might not be possible." "It will be. I'll study hard and become the best doctor in the world. Then I'll cure you and everyone who has the same problem." The determination in the boy's voice was so strong that Victoria almost believed he could actually do it. 6 months after they met, the family received news that would change their lives once more. Leo's school called to let her know he had been selected for a special program for gifted students. "Gifted?" Victoria repeated on the phone with the principal. "Yes, Ma'am. Leo has exceptional intellectual ability. He already masters content that is usually only taught in high school." When Victoria shared the news with the family, Leo was confused. "What does gifted mean?" "It means you're very smart, my dear," explained Mrs. Martha proudly. "Smarter than the other kids." "Not smarter," corrected Victoria. "You learn differently and faster." "Is that good or bad?" "It's wonderful, Leo. It means you can truly become the doctor you always dreamed of being." The special program would allow Leo to accelerate his studies, but it would also require more dedication. Victoria didn't hesitate to hire the best private tutors to support him. During this time, Mrs. Martha became a key part of the household routine. She took care of the housekeeping with special care, treating every detail as if she were looking after her own family. And that's exactly what she was doing. "Mrs. Martha, you don't need to do so much," Victoria would say whenever she found her cleaning or cooking. "Yes, I do, Mrs. Victoria. This is my home too, and I like taking care of my family." The two women developed a deep friendship, based on mutual respect and their shared love for Leo. Victoria learned from Mrs. Martha to appreciate life's simple things, while Mrs. Martha marveled at Victoria's generosity and transformation. One year after their first meeting at the restaurant, Victoria decided to throw a party to celebrate. She invited Catherine, some close friends, and the entire staff from Leo's school. "Leo, what would you like as a gift?" she asked him on the eve of the party. "I don't need a gift, Mrs. Victoria. I already have everything I ever wanted." "What did you always want?" "A family that truly loves me." On the day of the party, Leo surprised everyone with a speech he had prepared on his own. "A year ago, I was a boy who was hungry on the streets, but I wasn't unhappy because I had my grandma with me. When I met Mrs. Victoria, I said I would trade places with her just to have something to eat. Today I know I don't need to trade places with anyone because I found where I belong." The guests were moved by the boy's words. Mrs. Martha cried with pride and Victoria held Leo's hand tightly. "Mrs. Victoria taught me that being different isn't a flaw, that being in a wheelchair doesn't make anyone less important. And I want to teach her that being gifted also doesn't make me different from other kids. We're all special in our own way." After the party, when they were alone, Victoria hugged Leo with all the love she felt. "You became the son I always dreamed of having, Leo. And you became the mother I always dreamed of having." 2 years passed quickly. Leo had advanced several grades in school and was already taking high school-level classes, even though he was only 10 years old. His dream of becoming a doctor seemed closer to reality every day. Mrs. Martha, at 72, was strong and healthy, enjoying every moment with her new family. She had become a beloved presence in the neighborhood, known for her wisdom and kindness. Victoria had discovered a new passion, working with charities that cared for vulnerable children. She used her experience with Leo to help other families, always with Mrs. Martha's enthusiastic support. Mrs. Victoria, there's a child at the shelter who reminds me so much of Leo when I first met him, she said during one of her visits to the institutions. How so? It's a 9-year-old boy who takes care of his younger siblings. He has the same sad eyes, but also the same inner strength. Do you think we should meet him? I think so. Leo would be happy to have a brother. When Victoria told Leo about the boy, his eyes lit up with excitement. Are you going to adopt him too? Only if you all agree. After all, this decision affects the whole family. I agree. I've always wanted a brother to play and study with. And you, Mrs. Martha, my heart has room for one more child. The next day, they all went together to meet Simon, a 9-year-old boy who had taken on the responsibility of caring for his 3 younger siblings after their parents disappeared. The situation deeply moved the family. Simon, would you like to come live with us? Asked Victoria. And my siblings. Your siblings too, of course. All of us? All of you. Family doesn't get split up. Simon looked at Leo, who smiled encouragingly. You'll like living with us. Mrs. Victoria is the best mum in the world, and Grandma Martha makes the best homemade apple pie there is. 3 months later, Victoria's mansion housed a family of 7, her, Martha, Leo, Simon, and the 3 younger siblings, 6-year-old Lily, 4-year-old Toby, and little 2-year-old Chloe. The house, which once echoed with loneliness, now vibrated with laughter, games, and lively conversations. Victoria had converted some rooms to comfortably accommodate all the children. Mrs. Victoria, are you sure this isn't too much? Asked Martha one afternoon as they watched the 5 children playing in the garden. Martha, look at me. When was the last time you saw me sad? The elderly woman thought for a moment and smiled. I can't remember. Ever since Leo came into our lives, you've only smiled. Then there's your answer. Each of these children has brought more joy into my life. Leo had perfectly adapted to his role as the older brother. He helped Simon with his studies, played patiently with the younger ones, and always protected Lily when she felt intimidated by the new situation. Leo, aren't you jealous of sharing Mrs. Victoria's attention? Asked Simon one night as they got ready for bed. Why would I be jealous? Because before, it was just you, and now there are 5 of us. Leo thought for a moment before answering. Simon, before, I didn't have any family. Now I have a mother, a grandmother, and 4 siblings. How could I be jealous of having gained so much? The answer touched Simon deeply. He was used to competing for attention and resources, but in that house there was enough love for everyone. On the 3rd anniversary of Victoria and Leo's first meeting, the family had become a fixture in the city. Victoria was invited to speak at conferences on adoption and social inclusion, always accompanied by Leo, who impressed audiences with his intelligence and maturity. Mrs. Victoria, can I ask you something? Said Leo on one of those occasions, after an especially emotional speech. Always, my dear. Do you think that if the accident hadn't happened, we would have met? The question caught Victoria off guard. It was something she had never thought about. Why do you ask that? Because if you hadn't been sad at the restaurant, maybe you wouldn't have noticed me. And if I hadn't been hungry on the street, I wouldn't have stopped to look at you. Victoria reflected on the boy's words and realized the depth of his observation. You know, Leo, maybe you're right. Maybe my accident was necessary for us to find each other. So it was something good that happened? If it allowed me to meet you and Mrs. Martha, then yes, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Leo smiled and hugged Victoria tightly. I think it was good too, because if I hadn't been hungry, I wouldn't have met the best mom in the world. At that moment, Victoria fully understood what Leo had said on the first day. He didn't want to trade places with her to get food. He wanted to trade to lessen his sadness. And in the end, they didn't need to trade places. They found a place where both of them could be happy together. 5 years after their first meeting, Leo turned 15 as the youngest university student in the country. He had been accepted into the medical program at the best university, fulfilling his childhood dream. "Mom," he said. He had stopped calling Victoria Mrs. a long time ago. "I want to perform my first surgery on you." "On me?" "I want to be the doctor who helps you walk again. Leo, we've talked about this. It's not always possible. But I'm going to try. And if I can't do it with surgery, I'll invent new technology. I promise that before I turn 30, you'll be able to dance at my wedding." Victoria laughed at her son's determination. "And who said you're getting married?" "I don't know who yet, but when it happens, I want you to be the one to walk me down the aisle." Walking. Mrs. Martha, now 77, was still the healthy, wise matriarch of the family. Simon had become an excellent student and dreamed of being a teacher. Lily showed talent in the arts, Toby in sports, and little Chloe, now 7, already showed the same exceptional intelligence as Leo. "Grandma Martha," Chloe said one afternoon, "do you think we'll all get to fulfill our dreams like Leo did?" "I'm sure of it, my dear. In our family, whoever dreams big and works hard always gets what they want." "And what was your dream, Grandma?" Martha looked around, seeing all the children playing in the garden, Victoria working happily in her office, and smiled. "My dream was to see my grandson grow up happy and safe. But life gave me much more than I dreamed, a huge family full of love." During dinner that night, Victoria made an announcement that surprised everyone. "Family, I have some news for you." All the children stopped eating and looked at her expectantly. "I received an offer to write a book telling our story." "A book about us?" asked Lily, excited. "About how we met and became a family." "And are you going to accept?" Simon wanted to know. "Only if you all agree. After all, it's the story of all of us." Leo, always the most thoughtful, asked the question everyone was thinking. "And what would the title of the book be?" Victoria smiled and looked at each face around the table. "I'd trade places with you to have something to eat. The story of how we discovered that love multiplies when it's shared." "I like it," said Chloe, clapping. "But you have to tell the whole truth," Toby insisted. "That you were tough at first and almost didn't let Leo into the restaurant. And that I cried in secret because I was afraid of Grandma's surgery," added Leo. "And that I didn't believe anyone could be so generous without wanting anything in return," finished Martha. "We'll tell everything," Victoria promised. "The hard times and the happy times. So other people know that it's always possible to start over." 6 months later, the book was published and became a national success. The story touched thousands of families and inspired many adoptions. Victoria donated all the profits to institutions that cared for children in vulnerable situations. Leo, now in his 3rd year of medical school, had become an even more determined young man in his goal to help people with physical disabilities. He participated in advanced research projects and was already publishing scientific articles. "Mum, I have a surprise for you," he said one morning, entering Victoria's room with an envelope. "What is it?" "I was accepted into an exchange program in Baltimore. I'm going to study with the best neurosurgeons in the world." "Leo, that's wonderful." "But I know it's far from home. But it's only for 2 years, and I'll come back ready to fulfill our promise." "What promise?" "To see you walking again." Victoria hugged her son, proud of his determination, but with a heavy heart over the separation. "Leo, you don't have to do this for me. It's not just for you, Mom. It's for everyone in the same situation who has lost hope." 2 years passed quickly. Leo returned from the United States as one of the country's youngest specialists in neurology and rehabilitation. He had developed an innovative technique that was revolutionizing the treatment of spinal cord injuries. "Mom, are you ready?" he asked, walking into Victoria's room one October morning. "Ready for what?" "For your first appointment with Dr. Leo Dawson, neurological rehabilitation specialist." Victoria laughed, but realized Leo was serious. "Leo, we've talked about this. Mom, trust me. I just want to run some tests, see if there's any possibility of new treatment." 3 hours later, at the hospital where it all began with Mrs. Martha's surgery, Leo analyzed Victoria's test results with a team of specialists. "Dr. Dawson," said the head of the medical team, "I think your mother might be a candidate for the new treatment." "Are you sure?" Her injuries aren't as extensive as we initially thought. With the new technique, there's a 60% chance of partial mobility recovery. Leo felt his heart race. After so many years, there was finally real hope. And the risks? Minimal. The procedure is less invasive than traditional techniques. When Leo shared the news with Victoria, she couldn't believe it. "Leo, is this real?" "Completely real, Mom. Do you want to try?" Victoria looked at her son, the boy she had once seen starving on the street, who was now a renowned doctor, offering her the chance to walk again. "Of course I want to try." The surgery was scheduled for a month later. During that time, the whole family rallied to support Victoria. Mrs. Martha, now 80 but still strong, took charge of the household. Simon, now a graduate in education, looked after the younger children. Lily, Toby and Chloe made encouraging posters to hang in their mother's room. "Mom," said Chloe the night before the surgery, "if the operation works, will you be able to play running games with us?" "If it works, the first thing I'll do is play tag with you in the garden." "And will you be able to drive by yourself?" "I'll be able to do a lot of things I haven't done in years." "And if it doesn't work, will you be sad?" Victoria hugged the youngest in the family. "Chloe, if it doesn't work, I'll still be the same happy mom I am today, because what makes me happy isn't my legs, it's you all." On the day of the surgery, the whole family was at the hospital. Leo led the medical team, nervous but confident. Mrs. Martha prayed in the chapel, and the other children played in the waiting room, trying to stay calm. The surgery lasted 8 hours. It was the longest 8 hours in the entire family's life. Leo came out of the operating room exhausted but smiling. "How did it go?" asked Mrs. Martha, being the first to approach. "It went perfectly, Grandma. Better than we expected." "And when will we know if it worked?" "In the next few hours. When the anesthesia wears off, we'll run the first tests." 6 hours later, Victoria woke up surrounded by the whole family. Leo held her hand, anxious. "Mum, how are you feeling?" "Good. A little dizzy, but good." "Mum, can you try moving your toes?" Victoria focused all her energy on her feet. Slowly, miraculously, she managed to move her toes. The room erupted in shouts of joy. Mrs. Martha cried with emotion. The children jumped on the bed. Leo hugged his mother with tears in his eyes. "It worked, Mom. It worked." In the weeks that followed, Victoria underwent an intensive physical therapy program. Slowly, she regained movement in her legs. First, she managed to stand with support, then take a few faltering steps, until finally she could walk on her own. The day she walked down the stairs at home was a celebration for the whole family. Mrs. Martha, who had witnessed so many miracles in her life, declared that this was the greatest of them all. "Mrs. Victoria, seeing you walk is like seeing my grandson fulfill the dream he's had since he was a child. No, Mrs. Martha, seeing you all happy is what makes my dream come true." 1 year after the surgery, Leo graduated from medical school with top honors. During his commencement speech, he told the story of the family and dedicated his diploma to Victoria. "When I was 8 years old and starving on the streets, I met a woman in a wheelchair who looked very sad. I said I would switch places with her to get something to eat. Today, 15 years later, I can say we didn't need to switch places. We found a place where we can both be happy and complete. And now, as a doctor, I want to help others find their place in the world, too." 2 years later, Leo married Isabel, a physical therapist he had met during his residency. As promised, Victoria walked him down the aisle, wearing a blue dress that Chloe had chosen especially for the occasion. "Mom," Leo whispered as they walked toward the altar, "thank you for teaching me that love has no limits. Thank you for teaching me to love again, my son." Mrs. Martha, now 85 years old, watched the ceremony from the front row, proud to see the grandson she had raised becoming an upright and successful man. Beside her, Simon, Lily, Toby and Chloe were thrilled with emotion. During the reception, Victoria made a toast that moved everyone present. 20 years ago, I met a boy who said he would switch places with me to have something to eat. Today he is a respected doctor, a wonderful son, and a man who dedicates his life to helping others. Leo taught me that it doesn't matter where we come from or what difficulties we face. What matters is how we choose to love and be loved. Leo stood up and hugged Victoria in front of all the guests. Mum, you gave me much more than food that first day. You gave me a family, an education, and most importantly, you gave me unconditional love. Now, I pass that lesson on to my wife and the children I will have. Isabel, the bride, joined the hug. Victoria, thank you for raising the man I married, and thank you for accepting me into this amazing family. Isabel, this has always been your family. We were just waiting for you to arrive. 3 years after Leo's wedding, Victoria's house was livelier than ever. Leo and Isabel had twins, James and Sarah, who spent weekends with their grandmother. Simon had gotten married and also had a young child. Lily was dating a guy from art school. Toby had become a professional soccer player. Chloe, now 17, was following in Leo's footsteps and had been accepted into medical school. Mrs. Martha, even at 88 years old, was still the heart of the family. She cared for her great-grandchildren with the same patience she had shown Leo years before. "Grandma Martha," Leo said one Sunday afternoon as they watched the children playing in the garden, "do you remember what you said to me at the hospital the day I met Mum? What was it, my dear? You said I was the most precious treasure God had given you. And you are. But now I see you were wrong about one thing." Mrs. Martha looked at him with curiosity. "About what?" "You weren't just blessed with one treasure. You became the treasure of an entire family. Mum, Isabel, the kids, all of us are rich because we have you." Martha was moved by her grandson's words. "Leo, my life has become so much more than I ever dreamed. When your mother abandoned you, I thought we would face the world alone. I never imagined we would have such a big family, so full of love. And it all started because a hungry boy looked at a sad woman through a shop window." "No, Leo. It all started because a hungry boy had a heart generous enough to care about a stranger's sadness." At that moment, Chloe approached them. "What are you two talking about?" "About how our family began," Leo answered. "Grandma, tell the story again of how Leo met Mom." Martha smiled and began to tell for the 1000th time the story she never tired of. Once upon a time, there was a very brave boy who was hungry on the streets, but who had a heart bigger than his stomach. Victoria, who had come closer to listen, smiled at hearing the familiar words. 10 years after regaining her ability to walk, she still marveled at the journey they had taken together. Looking at her family gathered in the garden, Leo holding his little children, Isabel helping Lily with her graduation preparations, Simon teaching Toby ball tricks, Martha telling stories to Chloe. Victoria remembered the words Leo had said on the first day. He had said he would trade places with her to have something to eat, but in truth they hadn't traded places. They had found a place where both could truly be happy, and that place was called family. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe that love can transform lives like it happened with Victoria and Leo? Leave your opinion in the comments and share if you've also had an experience that changed your life forever. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.